Good morning. Thank you for joining me again on our journey through A Course in Miracles. So I found my headset. So today we'll be practicing lesson 17 and we'll continue our reading of the text. We are in chapter 18. And again, I would love to hear how this is going for you. It's a bit of an experiment. Right now, we're just showing up with a curious mind, just letting the words wash over you, observing how your mind receives the information. The cadence of a text is written in a certain kind of way. Parts of it are in Shakespearean pentameter, which is quite sophisticated, but it has a certain kind of rhythm as a result. And I would say that it's quite sophisticated as a work, deeply intelligent. It's just a matter of letting our minds be open to that wisdom. All right, so let's go to sharing the screen. We click on Read A Course in Miracles, clicking on the text, scrolling down to chapter 18, and we are at section 3, Light in the Dream. Let's begin. Paragraph 1. You who have spent your life in bringing truth to illusion, reality to fantasy, have walked the way of dreams. For you have gone from waking to sleeping and on to a yet deeper sleep. Each dream has led to other dreams, and every fantasy that seemed to bring a light into the darkness, but made the darkness deeper. Your goal was darkness, in which no ray of light could enter, and you sought a blackness so complete that you could hide from truth forever, in complete insanity. What you forgot was simply that God cannot destroy himself. The light is in you. Darkness can cover it, but cannot put it out. All right, so all I'll say here is that final bit where what you forgot was simply that God cannot destroy himself. And then the light is in you, inferring there that you are the light of God. God cannot destroy himself, and therefore you cannot be destroyed. That the light of God, the eternal light, is in you. Finally, darkness can cover it, but cannot put it out. And it's like what I said in the other video. Consider God like our physical sun, analogous to the physical sun that is always shining, whether we can see it or not, whether it's covered by clouds or not, whether our perspective is limited or not. All right, let me go back to sharing the screen and we'll look at paragraph 2. As the light comes nearer, you'll rush to darkness, shrinking from the truth, sometimes retreating to the lesser forms of fear and sometimes to stark terror. But you will advance because your goal is the advance from fear to truth. The goal you accepted is the goal of knowledge for which you signified your willingness. Fear seems to live in darkness, and when you are afraid, you've stepped back. Let us then join quickly in an instant of light, and it will be enough to remind you that your goal is light. And so when the Course is referring to you, it's referring to the part of your consciousness that subscribes to the belief that we're separate, that we are without the light, that actually we're creatures of sin. This is the illusion. So the goal, which the text brought up in chapter 17, the goal is truth. And here the text has offered us a different word for truth, which is knowledge, which from the point of view of our consciousness, our individualized consciousness, that's what it would be, right? It would be knowledge. So with knowledge comes the realization of truths. All right, so let me continue. for paragraph 3. Truth has rushed to meet you since you called upon it. If you knew who walks beside you on the way that you have chosen, fear would be impossible. You do not know because the journey into darkness has been long and cruel, and you've gone deep into it. A little flicker of your eyelids closed so long has not yet been sufficient to give you confidence in yourself so long despised. You go toward love, still hating it and terribly afraid of its judgment upon you. And you do not realize that you're not afraid of love, but only of what you've made of it. You are advancing to love's meaning and away from all illusions in which you've surrounded it. When you retreat to the illusion, your fear increases, for there is little doubt that what you think it means is fearful. Yet what is that to us who travel surely and very swiftly away from fear? And so what does that mean, that the ego is afraid of love? So the ego is afraid of absolute love because it relies on conditions, because it itself has risen, has been born out of conditions, out of judgments, which begins with, I am this and you are that. We're taught that from the beginning. And our senses correlate with that because the senses start to differentiate and we start to perceive this like vibration world through the mechanisms of our interpretive devices, which are our senses. And so again, this world feels very real. It feels very convincing because we interact with it. We experience it through the interpretation devices of our senses. But when we shift our perception to see that, oh, this is all me, actually, this is all light, this is all particles and waves moving through space. Well, now I can see much more clearly how everything is an effect of mind. Everything is a mirror. Everything is reflecting myself back at me to see, which then brings us back to the great wisdom behind the Ho'oponopono practice that I shared 2 videos ago. So the ego is terrified of unconditional love because it's afraid to be seen for what it is, and it's afraid of its own demise. Again, because the ego has embodied itself through the body, then its survival is dependent on the body's survival. And so it's hooked itself into the body's needs, the body's wants. But at the same time, what's fascinating is that the ego is inherently self-destructive. It's actually testing the bounds of love. It's actually testing its worthiness or its lack of worth because it has a fundamental belief born out of the belief, this feeling of separation, that it must be wrong, it must be bad, it must not be whole and complete because it doesn't feel whole and complete. It can't be whole and complete because from its point of view, it's separate from the divine, it's separate from light, it's separate from God, it's separate from nature. All right, I'm going to pause there because I feel like I'm a little bit soapboxy right now. So let's continue with paragraph 4. You who hold your brother's hand also hold mine, for when you joined each other, you were not alone. Do you believe that I would leave you in the darkness that you agreed to leave with me? In your relationship is this world's light, and fear must disappear before you now. Be tempted not to snatch away the gift of faith you offered to your brother. You will succeed only in frightening yourself. The gift is given forever, for God himself received it. You cannot take it back. You have accepted God. The holiness of your relationship is established in heaven. You do not understand what you accepted, but remember that your understanding is not necessary. All that was necessary was merely the wish to understand. That wish, the desire to be holy. The will of God is granted you, for you desire the only thing you ever had or ever were. Two things have come up for me here as I'm reading that paragraph is that this text was scribed in response to the relationship that the scriber, Helen Schucman, was having with her co-worker, Dr. William Thetford. And so it's possible then that the text is referring to them when it says you. However, we can extrapolate that to include us because we're not included, and also because we're the ones that are reading it, right? So we can turn that very specific situation, that micro situation, into a macro situation and apply it to humanity as a whole, but also apply it within our own personal circumstances as well. It's enough, I think. And the second thing is to do with just simply wishing to have knowledge, wishing to receive the truth. And the wish is really the prayer, or the wish is aligning your personal will. And I like how they both start with WI, where we're aligning personal will with divine will. And the wish is the means through which our personal will can be connected with divine will. But it has to be a truthful one. It has to be an authentic one for it to be truly heard. It can't be conflicting. It has to come with it some conviction, in my point of view anyway. All right, let's go back to the text. Paragraph 5. Each instant that we spend together will teach you that this goal is possible and will strengthen your desire to reach it. And in your desire lies its accomplishment. Your desire is now in complete accord with all the power of the Holy Spirit's will. No little faltering footsteps that you may take can separate your desire from His will and from His strength. I hold your hand as surely as you agreed to take your brother's. I will not separate, for I stand with you and walk with you in your advance to truth. And where we go, we carry God with us. All right, I'll continue on to paragraph 6. In your relationship, you have joined with me in bringing heaven to the Son of God who hid in darkness. You have been willing to bring the darkness to light, and this willingness has given strength to everyone who would remain in darkness. Those who would see will see, and they will join with me in carrying their light into the darkness when the darkness in them is offered to the light and is removed forever. My need for you, joined with me in the holy light of your relationship, is your need for salvation. Would I not give you what you gave to me? For when you joined your brother, you answered me. And the joining here is just willing to see your brother's innocence, to see him as yourself, to live the golden rule, which is that we are equally of light, that the light shines on us equally. And that if we are behaving badly, it's only because we've been believing these false concepts about what we are, where we came from, and why we're here. Let's go to paragraph 7. You who are now the bringer of salvation have the function of bringing light to darkness. The darkness in you has been brought to light. Carry it back to darkness from the holy instant to which you brought it. We're made whole in our desire to make whole. Let not time worry you, for all the fear that you and your brother experience is really past. Time has been readjusted to help us do together what your separate paths would hinder. You've gone past fear, for no two minds can join in the desire for love without love's joining them. Okay, wow. So in this one, I'm really hearing the Holy Spirit speaking directly to Helen and William. And also this reminds me of when in the spring of 2019, I did an ayahuasca ceremony with my dear friend Brenda in Colorado. And during that experience, I was shown the realm of deformity. That was the word that came to mind for good or ill. And the way ayahuasca works is that it can shift your perception. So during part of the experience, I also found my perception wholly in other people's bodies, in my friends' bodies. There were three different friends, and I only knew where I was because looking through their eyes, I recognized the people they were talking to. I also noticed that through that experience, if I asked a question, then the answer came. The answer was received. I received the answer. So in this section of the experience, I found myself in this place that was very dark, and there were beings, there were God's creatures in this place, but it was almost like an eraser had come along and just taken off parts, taken off their half their face or half their body or their back. And so their gait was unseemly. They didn't look right. And so when I asked, what is this? I heard the realm of deformity. And so I did notice that there was an absence of fear. And through that absence of fear, my consciousness affirmed to itself, well, I know where I'm going and I'm not staying here, but you can come with me. Because at the same time, in an instant, I was also reminded of the story where Buddha goes out into the desert. And I think this story is also reflected in Jesus's story also. But in the Buddhist story, he goes out into the desert, and Mara, the devil, comes to meet him, to antagonize him. And so the Buddha, instead of being antagonized, invites Mara to tea and befriends Mara. So that remembrance also happened in a split second. And so I made this decision, I suppose, to befriend where I was, to befriend that which to me was unsightly, was ugly. I affirmed that I knew where I was going. Then when I made the inquiry, how do I leave this place? How do I get out of here? I heard, look up. And so when I looked up, I suddenly was out. I was out of this realm. So yes, I think it's something worthwhile to consider, that your light, your attention directs your light on what it is that you're putting your attention on. So it may be important to hear and to perhaps bring more discernment to what you put your attention on. This paragraph is telling us that the past has been reset. So then my question is, why would we keep it then? The past is over as soon as it's taken place. It's over, it's over, it's over. And our thoughts about the past can only ever happen now, as images, pictures, sounds, and color in our minds now. It's not here. The scene, the characters, all of that is not here in our now moment. So what is it inside of you that prefers that, to put your attention there, rather than on the truth of this now moment, which is that you are 100% safe and supported, that you have everything you need to exist in this moment. That as long as your heart's beating, your body's breathing, you're meant to be here. You're meant to be having this experience. But as you have this experience, where are you going to put your attention? And again, I'll go back to it. That's what the practice of meditation is all about. It's about practicing the art of attention, of paying attention, building that discipline. Okay, I'm going to go back to share the screen. Awfully chatty today. Okay, paragraph 8. Not one light in heaven, but goes with you. Not one ray that shines forever in the mind of God, but shines on you. Heaven is joined with you in your advance to heaven. When such great lights have joined with you to give the little spark of your desire the power of God Himself, can you remain in darkness? You and your brother are coming home together after a long and meaningless journey that you undertook apart that led nowhere. You've found your brother, and you will light each other's way. And from this light will the great rays extend back into darkness and forward unto God to shine away the past and so make room for His eternal presence, in which everything is radiant in the light. Okay, you might want to read that a couple of times. It's a nice visual, beautiful language to anchor our faith into. All right, and also to anchor in our new definition or the redefined function of the purpose of our relationships with our fellow brothers and sisters here. All right, so now let's go back to the lesson. So we're going to click on Workbook for Students, and now we're typing in Lesson 17, and I'll have the narrator read that for us.
Lesson 17. I see no neutral things. This idea is another step in the direction of identifying cause and effect as it really operates in the world. You see no neutral things because you have no neutral thoughts. It is always the thought that comes first, despite the temptation to believe that it is the other way around. This is not the way the world thinks, but you must learn that it is the way you think. If it were not so, perception would have no cause and would itself be the cause of reality. In view of its highly variable nature, this is hardly likely. In applying today's idea, say to yourself, with eyes open, I see no neutral things because I have no neutral thoughts. Then look about you, resting your glance on each thing you note long enough to say, I do not see a neutral blank because my thoughts about blank are not neutral. For example, you might say, I do not see a neutral wall because my thoughts about walls are not neutral. I do not see a neutral body because my thoughts about bodies are not neutral. As usual, it is essential to make no distinctions between what you believe to be animate or inanimate, pleasant or unpleasant. Regardless of what you may believe, you do not see anything that is really alive or really joyous. That is because you are unaware as yet of any thought that is really true and therefore really happy. 3 or 4 specific practice periods are recommended, and no less than 3 are required for maximum benefit, even if you experience resistance. However, if you do, the length of the practice period may be reduced to less than the minute or so that is otherwise recommended.
Okay, so we're going to practice together for a minute. But first, as always, just start to bring your attention to the unconditional love and support that's here. Today, let's just take a breath and look around and just reminding yourself that I am safe. Because in the moment that we think it, we are. Again, just feel the support that's here, that's holding you in just the right amount. Even if you were to bear down like Rumpelstiltskin into the floor, it doesn't give way. And so just acknowledge that you have this support that's available to you, that the earth rises to meet your step. You can depend on that. You can trust Mother Earth to hold your feet. Come home to the breath. Take a nice centering breath here. I'll share the screen again so that you can see the text. This practice is with eyes open, remember. So our idea for today is I see no neutral things. Saying to yourself, I see no neutral things because I have no neutral thoughts. And then as you look about you, resting your glance on each thing, whether it's animate or inanimate, say to yourself, I do not see a neutral and the object because my thoughts about the object are not neutral. All right, starting the timer now. Looking about, I see no neutral things because I have no neutral thoughts. I do not see a neutral chair because my thoughts about chairs are not neutral. Okay, so that was our timer. Excellent. I noticed that my mind was saying, oh yeah, that's true, afterwards. I do not see a neutral flower because my thoughts about flowers are not neutral. And then the little voice was like, oh yeah, that's true. They're not. Uh, and so the neutrality that the lessons are pointing us to, uh, retraining our minds to, is the inherent neutrality of all that is. That the meaning that it has, which is a previous lesson, only has the meaning that I've given it. All right. Are you having fun? I'm having fun. I'm going to go back and share the screen to then look at our next principle of miracles. So going back to the text, chapter 1, the meaning of miracles, principles of miracles, scrolling down to principle 36. Oh, it's a short one too. Miracles are examples of right thinking, aligning your perceptions with truth as God created it. Okay, it's enough, I think. All right. So, and feel free to screenshot any of the language from the lesson so you can do the practice periods throughout the day. Remember that for this lesson, it was 3 practice periods of a minute or so. And you can screenshot the principle of the miracle just to keep that top of mind through the day. All right, so just reminding you, as always, to check the Alila Center website for online classes. Reminding you that I have the regular online offering of the mindfulness-based meditation class, which I highly recommend because it is the practice of paying attention, of training your mind to focus. And the happy effects of a strong meditation practice, the art of paying attention, is that fear, doubt, and worry fade away. The monkey mind settles down and our perception shifts. We see things, we see each other with new vision. And so that class is on the 3rd Tuesday of the month at 7 p.m. Eastern. And then I have the meditation, natural healing, self-help class where I take you through a protocol for self-healing, for natural healing, because energy work works. And it's an act of self-love. It's showing the universe, showing God that we can be our own healers, that we want to balance, that we want to harmonize, and that we acknowledge the subtle aspect of our nature that precedes all matter and is powerful. Because remember that where our attention goes, energy flows, and where our energy flows, our biology goes. And so that's why it's worthwhile to join a class like that. And maybe think about taking actual Reiki training, which I also offer, and I'm willing to offer online, although we would have to talk about doing the attunement, because I think the attunement should be done in person. But we could couple that with a one-day meditation retreat. We could make an event of it. All right, so have a fantastic day, and I will see you next time. Bye.